Oh god, this looks terrible. Now that's more like it. What's up guys, my name is Navik, and today's topic is going to be on lighting. So as you saw in the beginning, lighting is actually pretty important, and it can make any amateur look pro, if done right. Okay, maybe not pro, but definitely better than amateur. So today I'm going to teach you 3 tips on how to improve your lighting, and these are tips that I always use whenever I shoot outdoors or indoors even. By the way, for the sake of this video, I'm going to be using some portraits that I've taken as an example, but the tips I'm about to give you really work for any kind of photography or filmmaking. So let's get right into it. Tip number 1, the light must bring attention to your subject rather than distract from it. So how do you do this? Here are some examples. So as you can see here, this is a really beautiful image, the colors are great, but the problem is there's not enough light on my subject for her to be the main center of attraction. And so the problem with that is I took a portrait of her, but I'm focused more on this background because it's brighter than anything else. Now, an example of a good lighting scenario is this one, which by the way, it's straight out of camera. Alright, that was kind of cringy. So what I did for this photo was I used a flash. Personally, I'm not a big fan of using the flash, but after I took this picture, I realized that if I use it properly, then I can get some really good results like this one. So basically by using the flash, I was able to have her be brighter in the picture, and that made her stand out from the background compared to anything else. So using light to bring focus onto your subjects doesn't only apply to portraits, but also landscape as well. So this is a picture I took with my phone, and the sun was perfect because it was shining right on this mountain, making us stand out from everything else. So what I decided to do is take a picture and edit it, and this was the final result. So this just goes to show that if your lighting is on point, it doesn't really matter what camera you have. In this case, I just got lucky that I was hiking and I saw this mountain and the sun just happened to be shining on it. So yeah. So the second tip to improve your lighting is having contrast in your images. Contrast basically is the difference between lightness and darkness. Now, why do you want this? Well, it helps separate the subject from the background, and what that does is it places a focus on them. So let's say you're taking a portrait, for example. Your subject should be either brighter than the background or darker than the background, depending on what you're shooting. So if you are shooting a silhouette, then obviously your subject needs to be darker than the background. And if you're shooting a portrait where you want to actually see the subject, then they need to be lighter than the background itself. So if you guys are still struggling with contrast and bringing attention to your subject using lighting, I would highly encourage you to turn your image from color to black and white and see where your focus goes first. And the reason for this is because when you're using a colored image, there's a good chance that your eyes may go to the most vibrant color, for example. And with black and white, obviously that won't happen. Rather, your eyes will go to the subject that pops out because of the way the light is hitting them. So do this, see what happens, and let me know in the comments below if this black and white trick works for you or if you need a better way for me to explain it. So for tip number 3, make sure you find the right lighting conditions for what you are shooting. For example, whenever I shoot portraits, I like to shoot when it's cloudy outside. And the reason for this is because the sunlight is diffused by the clouds, which makes a lot more even lighting all throughout. And this is good for portraits because then the light surrounds the person's face and doesn't have any hard shadows at all. Whereas if I take pictures of people in sunnier weather or harsh light, then chances are they're either going to have hard shadows on the bottom of their eyes or one side of their face. And this is something you want to avoid when shooting portraits because it doesn't create that pleasing of a look, unless that's what you're going for. The other thing I like to shoot when it's cloudy out are cars. And the reason for that is pretty much the same reason I like to shoot people in cloudy weather. It's because the light is diffused and it doesn't create any harsh shadows, so I can get all the details of the car without having to worry about some part of the car being darker than the other. Now obviously when it's cloudy there's still going to be shadows, but it's not as noticeable as when it's sunny out. The problem with shooting cars in the sunlight, at least from what I've found, is oftentimes when I'm exposing for a darker part of the car, the other side gets completely blown out in highlights or overexposed, and that just makes for a really unbalanced lighting situation. So there are ways of going around that, but your best bet, if you don't have the gear just yet, is to shoot when it's cloudy outside and you won't have to worry about harsh shadows. Now obviously there are some ways of going about shooting portraits in sunlight, and that's to either shoot in the shade, use a diffuser, or maybe even a flash. Now one of the best times to shoot and create some really stunning images is either during sunrise or sunset. And that's because you can get some really nice colors that look magical, dreamy, and eye-catching. And this can instantly make your photos look good. It can turn any sort of environment into something really beautiful, and is definitely a great time to shoot for some beginners out there who just feel like their photos during the day are falling flat. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you have a better understanding of how lighting works and how to make most of the situations you are in. And if this video was helpful to you, please consider liking and subscribing, and comment down below for what you'd like to see next. Thanks so much for watching.